Okey-dokey. Wait for it to refresh on my screen so I can mute myself. Come on, internet. There we go. All right, let's start the broadcast of the webinar to start letting some folks start to file in. Hello, Michelle. How are you?
I'm just great, Dan. How are you doing today? Good to see you.
Very good. Congratulations to you, Michelle. I noticed the listing of the top 100 ProAdvisors was announced today, and you're gracing the list yet again.
Well, congratulations to you, and congratulations to everybody. It is an honor for us to be included on there, and everyone else. And congratulations to the 25 up and comers. That was a new addition this year. That was kind of cool to see that, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was very neat to see. And we were just having this discussion about, how do we, it's very nice that they're, kind of paving the way for new people to grace the list, and it's really nice. I mean, from my perspective, it's really a surreal experience because I was helping ProAdvisors for 10 years of my life at Intuit, and now to be part of them is really phenomenal. I'm very humbled by being on both sides of that list at this point.
Well, Dan, you've come into the community with both feet and jumped in and definitely made an impact. So we're very glad to have you. And for those of you listening, as a reminder, keep track of all these QB Power Hour webinars that you're attending and listening to, because that is part of the application process. So, start a little Excel file or a little list and keep track of all the ones that you attend and listen to. Because that is part of the process and part of the application. So if you didn't make it this year, there's always next year. So don't give up. So anyway, we're glad to have you all here, and congratulations to everyone.
Awesome. Well, welcome to another QB Power Hour. Today, we're going to be talking about simplifying expense management with Fyle, which has a tie-in of a nifty story about the top 100 that we were just talking about. They last year, I believe, last year sent out a little congratulatory thing to the top 100, and they had the most interesting thing,
Yeah.
right? I mean, a lot of companies will just like send you stuff like swag or cookies or things like that, but they sent out this thing called an Eva bot. And it was unique in that it was basically a chat bot that started to learn some things about you, and then the little gift or swag that sent was tailored to you. So that was a really neat way to to do that, and which meant like you got something that interested you, right? And I got a little Wi-Fi plug, right, because I'm all about gadgets, and coffee, right? Because I need my coffee, right? What did you get, Michelle?
I'm not going to say now.
Oh, aha!
I got some whiskey glasses.
Oh, okay. Well,
And
that's a lovely shade of red you're wearing now.
Well, it was really cool, though. And that's where I first learned about Fyle. And I loved it because it was tailored to us. It asked you about your interests and what kind of things you like, because people always send coffee and stuff. And I'm not a coffee drinker. So my husband always gives the gifts. So Fyle, you guys were fabulous because I loved it, because I don't have to give my gifts away, because it asks, what do you like and what are your interests? And then it tailored the gift to you, and you get a couple of things, because I got the whiskey glasses and something else. So I thought that was really cool that you get something that's a surprise based on your interest, and it's tailored to what you like. So I thought that was really cool, and I didn't have to give my gift away because it wasn't, it was tailored to my life. Right. So I thought that was great, and that's when I first investigated Fyle, because of that gift, and I thought it was fabulous.
Yeah. So at Orlando, I just happened to be standing at the coffee line, and Vikram from Fyle is standing, just happens to be standing next to me, and because of that tie-in, I was like, I recognized Fyle. I was like, oh, you're the guys with this really awesome way to congratulate us as a top 100. And so he's standing there and telling me about what, because I'm like, well, what is Fyle, right? And he's showing me right there in the line. So from then, that just kind of born a conversation, and we're really glad to have the folks at Fyle joining us today, because for what you offer, it's really it's an out of the box type of thing. I don't think there's anything that kind of compares. I mean, maybe there is. I mean, there's just so many different options, but it's really unique. Some of the things that Fyle actually does for simplifying the expense management. So Michelle, let's kick off the Power Hour with some housekeeping and introductions.
Welcome, everybody. My name is Michelle Long. I'm a CPA with an MBA in entrepreneurship, owner of Long for Success. Been a speaker for Intuit forever, and author of 5 different books. Check those out. And that's enough about me. Go ahead, Dan.
All right. My name is Dan Witt. Dan, owner of Dan Witt. Worked at Intuit for nearly 18 years, co-hosting today, as well as the co-hosting duties over at the Workshop Wednesdays, which Fyle joined us for several webinars over at the workshop, and there is a link in the slides today to be able to review those if you need more information over at schoolofbookkeeping.com. And joining us is Nilesh. Go ahead and introduce yourself, Nilesh.
Hey everyone, so I'm Nilesh. I lead partner marketing and demand generation at Fyle. I've been there in the SaaS business for about 11-12 years now, selling to the US audiences. And yeah, mostly been in SaaS marketing all my life.
All right. Well, thanks for joining us today, Nilesh. We look forward to hearing what we have to discuss about expense management. So a little details about the QB Power Hour. It's every other Tuesday at noon Eastern. They aren't eligible for CPE credit, but as Michelle pointed out, they are eligible for the Top 100 ProAdvisor application. So do keep track of those. You can always look on the website for upcoming events. We're going to be talking about QB Commerce next time, and we'll be having some Practice Protect joining us as well in July to talk about this FTC deadline that's looming June 9th. 3 days. Oh my goodness. Well, yeah, let's talk about that for what that means. And then the PDF of the slides, recordings, the podcasts, other resources, we have that at qbpowerhour.com/resources. A little bit of the housekeeping. If you have specific questions about what the topic that we're talking about today, please put them in the Q&A, because that will certainly help us, especially with a follow-up. If we do need to follow up, if we can't answer it, live in the webinar today, please put that in the Q&A. If you have comments about anything that we're talking about, just kind of side comments, that would be a good use for in the chat. But so please put questions about what we're talking about in the Q&A so that we can properly address them. And then, of course, there's links there for the handouts as well as the webinar archive. So today, here's our agenda today. We'll talk about credit card reconciliation, some of those challenges that we're faced with in QuickBooks coming with that. That kind of comes with that, the cost that's associated with that, and what solutions are out there, and what to look for in an expense management solution when it comes to that point of okay, QuickBooks does so much, but I need more than that. And then we'll talk a little bit specifically about Fyle, and Nilesh will do a demo for us, which is pretty phenomenal. So, and Nilesh, if you want to, let's talk about the need for credit card reconciliation. Let's kick it off there.
Sure. Thank you so much, Dan and Michelle, for having me here. So, this should be self-explanatory for most people on here, but just to get the ball rolling. The main reason that you need a credit card reconciliation is because at the end of your closing books time, you want to make sure that all your card expenses are accounted for and compliant with your credit card statement. You want to eliminate any fraud, error, any duplicate expenses. And obviously, you want to keep track of your employee spending for internal oversight. And as you keep scaling your business, it really boils down to how you want to control your spend, how you want to set up your budget based on your expense data. A lot of our customers and partners, one way they use expense data is to figure out where are they spending the most. And as you scale your business, that becomes a key part of your reconciliation process. So the need for credit card reconciliation is majorly there. I mean, I would say 80% people use it for audit and tax purposes and for oversight. But as you keep scaling, you would realize that it's a much larger use case where you are actually managing your company budgets and figuring out how to actually, manage your spend better, maybe even reduce spend.
Now, have you seen that? So it just makes sense, right? I mean, we're kind of like preaching to the choir when it comes to, accountants and bookkeeping professionals. That we need to make sure that what we're spending. Are you seeing that it's been a shift from the way that people pay for expenses, right? Like the writing of checks versus electronic funds transfers or credit cards. Have you seen that in Fyle as far as the shift of how business expenses are being handled?
Yes. So see, I've been there for almost 3 years at Fyle now. And when we started, we used to get a lot more customers who were talking about reimbursable expenses and cash expenses. They used to spend in cash or they used to spend by their own card and get a receipt, and they were getting reimbursed for that. From there to now, where people are shifting more and more to corporate cards, or let's say a company provided credit card or even the personal credit card to make those expenses so that your reimbursable expenses keep reducing. So that at the end of your closing book cycle, you're just matching statements. You're not figuring out how much do you need to pay that employee at the end of the cycle. So we are definitely seeing that shift. I mean, and you can see the same shift in the industry as well. And we'll talk about it later, a lot of the solutions out there have started issuing their own cards, which means people are more and more shifting to that.
Got it. So let's kick off with our first poll here. Normally we ask, what kind of QuickBooks you're using. So we're just throwing a curve here. What's the biggest challenge that you face when it comes to expense management? Is it, in QuickBooks, is it the broken bank feeds, or the disconnecting the bank feeds? Is it collecting receipts from you, or maybe it's something else? Michelle, we were kind of having a discussion, I think last week, where we were talking about how in the certification course material, the recommended setup for when you're dealing with corporate credit cards and those types, where you have one account and then multiple card holders of that. There's been a change in the suggestion, right? What was that with the certification course material?
Right, and that's dealing where you have one card and then you have multiple card holders, where you've got the parent account and then you have, like, each employee has their own card, and you're trying to track how much did Dan charge, how much did Nilesh charge. So you can keep track of each card, but yet you have the one main account, and so you're trying to keep track of each person and their individual card, but you've got the parent account, and so you're setting each one up separately, and then that's where sometimes things aren't working quite properly, and so you're reconciling the parent account, but you're downloading it to each individual account, and so sometimes things don't work right, and sometimes it just can cause problems, and that's where things kind of get messy. And that's where Nilesh was saying, hey, we don't have to worry about that, So that's where I was like, oh my gosh, this is fabulous, when I was learning about their solution.
And Casey is agreeing. The barking that you hear is Michelle's dog. So Yes, it's live. We can't edit. Well, maybe we'll edit that out post production. But this is kind of like how it looks for most organizations, right? There's never a straight line, from the time that the employee spends to the time that you're manually reminding. Talk a little bit about this, Nilesh, about what this convoluted slide means.
Yeah. So internally, when we discuss about this, internally, this problem that we're trying to solve, we call it a lost GPS tracker.
Right.
It's just lost its way in going in circles and circles. And all of a sudden you're like, should I go into the lake next? So yeah, this is how it looks the biggest problem, if you look at the poll, a lot of people agree that two of the biggest problems is broken bank feeds and chasing employees for receipts. And then you obviously have the manual coding of entries into the software, because most solutions either don't have a very good two-way integration, or or something gets broken while you are trying to fill in the entries. And then when it comes to the receipt itself, how many of us have, lost receipts or just forgotten about them? And, I have had receipts which got washed in my denims.
Right.
So yeah,
or their thermal paper, and you put it on the dash, and now it's all black, right?
Yeah. So yeah, and at the end of the month, the finance team has a real hard time when the accountants have to go through the detailed credit card statements, matching line items, and you are checking line items for either duplicates or errors or fraudulent activities, because at the end of the day, you don't want the audit coming back to you. So that, and then the accounting system itself, you spend a ton of time coding, importing, exporting data into your accounting system. And what all this boils down to is that you waste hours and hours of productive time on manual efforts, which could be shifted to a lot more critical client advisory services or other services that you provide to your clients.
Right, like you have to wait, for that transaction to even post sometimes before you actually can, that's the starting gate actually opens for the transaction actually to show up. And when we had Ted Callahan a couple weeks ago, or maybe a month or so ago, that was one of the things that he kind of mentioned, is that having real-time access to the data, it is as close to real time as you can get, is going to make businesses a lot more nimble. And those accountants and bookkeepers that are providing some kind of advisory service, they'll be able to read the tea leaves a lot faster, and be able to make changes faster than waiting for month end or the close of the statement to make sure that everything is reconciled. So let's go ahead and launch our second poll. Go ahead.
No, go ahead and launch poll.
Yeah. So how much time would you say that it takes you to manually reconcile business credit cards? 50% of your time, with all that, all that stuff in the prior, how much time is that equating to you? But go ahead, Michelle.
Well, I was just going to say, over and above, the accounting side of things, on the tax side of things, so many tax professionals say, I don't want to be responsible. I'm not the IRS enforcement person who, is looking for these receipts. They don't want to be responsible for ensuring that the client is maintaining their receipts. They don't want to be, chasing the clients to get the receipts and all this stuff, so I love, how Fyle ensures that we get those receipts by reminding the clients, and I don't want to steal Nilesh's thunder with what's coming up, but just the ability to get those quickly and easily just takes a huge burden off of the tax professionals' shoulders by getting those quickly and easily.
So kind of giving an idea of what how much time this equates to. So it looks like we have about 80% of those folks responded. Let me go ahead and share the results. So it looks like it keeps popping up in different places on my screen, so I keep losing where so the results are. The less than 20% of the time, over 56%, but then 20 to 50% of your time, 34% of the folks here, that is a significant time stuck, I think is the technical term for it. So let's talk about what that, time is money these days. So let's just go ahead and talk about the cost of reconciliation.
And so you're right from the time you start filing an expense report, an employee, and it takes about 20 minutes for an employee to fill an expense report manually, to the time it gets approved and it goes to the finance team, gets reconciled. On an average, it's about $58 is the cost of manually processing an expense report. And more than that, as we already see in the poll itself, 30% of the time, an accountant's time is spent on manual reconciliation. And these are and this is data probably a little old, but very much up there with what's going on even now. So how can we solve it? And, the one thing that we keep hearing about is how can we automate everything? Can we automate the manual processes? Can we automate receipt submission? And yes, you can. You can automate your receipt submission. You can automate the extraction of receipt fields. And most importantly, you don't need to store your receipts physically, which I'll come to later in the webinar, that you don't really need to store your receipts anymore if you're using the right tool. And on the other side, or when you're closing books, you will be closing books faster. You will have pre-approval checks. The system is matching the receipts to card transactions, and there will be a two-way seamless integration. And that's what automation can do for you if you are trying to solve for expense management. So before we get into expense management software, what are the solutions out there? So one solution that I didn't even mention here, and which a lot of people still use, are spreadsheets. And I'm assuming a lot of people still do that. But on the tech side of things, the two main solutions out there, one is the bank provided software, which is basically you can collect a receipt, you can match the transaction, but it's only offered by select few banks. So not all banks will give you that. There are no way to track all types of expenses. So you might be able to track only card expenses. You can't set up approvals. You can't do real-time policy checks, because the drawback with the bank software is they are really legacy softwares. So the interface is not easy to use. The functionality is limited, and you will still not get real-time visibility into card spend, because most banks, when it comes to especially small business and corporate credit cards, don't provide you the real-time feeds. That's one of the problems we faced when we were building Fyle. And that's when we decided to build the tech to solve the problem of broken bank feeds, because banks would not give you access.
Yeah, and another drawback is that, from an accountant or bookkeeper's perspective, I have a client on Chase, I have a client on Wells Fargo, I've got a client using American Express. All of those things are different. And then, okay, where do I got to go to, to do this? If they've given me access to the financial institution, right? So I'm going back to that swirly line, right? It's a maddening thing. So.
Yeah, and the funny thing there is, it's not real time even after they give you access.
Right.
It takes about 48 hours for the feed to hit you. Sometimes it can take up to 48 hours. It still won't be instant. It's not like your file, using the card and you're getting an expense statement. So you still need to wait for it. And at the end of the month, you'll still be reconciling manually, because you'll still be matching it. And so to solve that problem, a lot of fintech solutions out there started issuing their own cards. Because, if you're issuing your own cards and you have the right software, it solves the problem. You could match the card transaction with receipts. You would get visibility into spend data. You would have the right accounting integrations, but you would have to switch to their cards.
Right.
And
that's the catch.
that's the catch. And if we can move quickly to the next slide, Dan.
Oh, sure.
The main catch there, switching cards, does it work? I know a lot of people have switched cards, but what they call credit cards are they really true credit? And they're not. Because in the fine print, you will see that you need to maintain a high cash balance. The credit cycle can be as less as 1 day, depending on your cash balance.
Whoa. That's not much of a credit cycle.
So yeah, I mean, there are terms which, like, depending on, how much your cash balance is, you will have to, the lesser your cash balance, the shorter the repayment cycle. So it's not true credit. And businesses that use corporate credit cards to manage their cash flow take a big hit. So, it's good for, I would say, well-funded startups who have enough money lying in the bank. But for small businesses and the mid-market who use credit as a cash flow management exercise, and, on top of that, you lose all the rewards and the loyalty points you have accumulated so far because you're switching cards. There's no way to transfer them.
Trying to get somebody who loves their American Express card to switch just to solve for this solution, is a tough sell.
And the resistance, and that will have a resistance to change. I mean, we anyways have problems in getting people to adopt a software. Imagine trying to adopt a new card.
Right.
So yeah, I mean, there's a lot of internal friction. And then there's expense management software where you have dedicated expense management platforms that will automate the expense tracking. They will collect receipts in real time, automatically reconcile card spend. You have AI-enabled OCR and expense coding so that you don't have to manually code. And I saw that was the biggest challenge everyone mentioned, that you don't want to manually code entries. And you allow for compliance checks, fraud detection, and approvals at any customization level you want. That should be the ideal solution, because it should not be that, oh, an approval came, but I'm probably not authorized to do this. So what do I do now? There should be that option that you have multi-tiered approvals and you are able to get another approver, external or internal, to approve it. And you want your analytics and reporting, because at the end of the day, if you are going to have a software, it should be able to help you manage the expense, not only for now, but for the long run. You should be able to reduce your overheads, and you might be there must be wasted spend somewhere, which you can probably manage. Like, for one example, we have had clients who have used the analytics to go back to vendors and say, hey, we are spending a lot with you. Let's have a fresh deal. But if you don't have the data in one place, you would never know where you are spending the most. And obviously, your two-way accounting integrations, because you do want all your data to be reflecting in your QuickBooks. At the same time, whatever changes you make in QuickBooks should be reflecting in your expense management software to avoid for any errors in the future.
Got it. All right, so let's talk about those that are using an expense management software currently. So what are you using? Are you using Expensify, Divvy, Concur? So that's the place, or that's the solution where Fyle is kind of lying, correct? Is that, when you think of what is Fyle, where is it, right? It'd be in that that category, right, Nilesh?
Yep.
And then there's the option of spreadsheets, or maybe I just rely on the bank feed, or some tools that are already inside of QuickBooks.
And while we're doing this question here, I was thinking about this. Fyle has come so far beyond just expense management.
Oops.
It's just so much beyond that. When you look at all the capabilities that we have now versus just taking a picture of your receipt. I mean, there's just so much more. And I can't wait for you to show that. But if you haven't looked at an expense management, application or whatever lately, wait till you see what he's going to share with you. I mean, it's just light years ahead of what it used to be. So it's just come so far.
Michelle, at what point does an accountant, bookkeeper, someone in the accounting profession want to like when do they start to step into, okay, well, I need something else? Is it the size of the client? Is it the size of the firm? Is it the
it's
varies,
really
I'm
more,
sure.
yeah, it's really more, it's dependent upon the small business and how many expenses they have to keep track of. For example, it could be one person who's got a lot of travel expenses, like myself. When I was traveling a lot, when we were on the road, and I had a lot of, hotel, airline, meals. If you've got somebody who's on the road and has a lot of expenses to keep track of, they're going to want an app like this. They don't have to have a lot of employees or a lot of sales. They don't have to be huge. They have to have a lot of expenses to keep track of. So it's more about the volume of activity that they need to track, not necessarily the size of sales revenue or the size of employees. Just if they've got a lot of expenses and receipts that they need to be tracking. In my opinion, anyway. Nilesh, what do you think?
A good
Yeah, I mean,
feedback on that.
I would agree with that. So, I mean, we have had customers who have just 5 users. And
Yeah,
in fact, most of the small businesses start with that. They would start with probably, let's say, 2 or 3 cards. And as you keep scaling, you keep adopting the app more. But I mean, and that's where, the whole concept of usage-led pricing came into place for us. And like, you learn more about it as we go forward. But the one thing that we do care about is that people should be able to easily solve for expense management. They should not have to learn a new app again. And second, it should solve for all use cases. For example, like if you're traveling, and let's say if you're traveling for a particular project, the app should be able to help that you can file an expense into a particular project or a cost center. And when you do the integration with QuickBooks, it should reflect in the same way. And that's one major piece we try to solve when we're building Fyle, that hey, we want to address all possible use cases.
All right, so let's talk about what to look for in an expense management solution.
Yeah, and like the first point is my favorite point, and like I'll later during the course of this I'll show you what I mean by ease of use. But one thing that we really want everyone to look for when you're looking for a software, in fact, not even expense management, any software, is that it should be easy for both employees or the end user and the team that is managing the software. Which means you should be able to submit receipts in a few clicks from multiple places, not just learning a new app to do that. There should be real-time receipt collection, especially for your credit card spend. You should have an automated extraction and expense coding from both digital and physical receipts, and have the user-friendly mobile app that allows your receipt tracking, mileage tracking, approvals. And like I said earlier, you should have multiple ways to approve expenses, because the more you scale your business, the complexity increases. You might need multi-tiered approvals, or you might need different types of approvals for different expenses. For example, what happens if it's an emergency expense and you violated a policy? You had surge pricing on the Uber and you're not allowed the transportation expense. You should be able to bill for those cases. You should have the option right there in the app for the employee to declare, okay, why did he file that expense, even though it was above the policy, it was violating a policy. So those things really matter. And then the second most important part is the card agnostic solution. You don't want to switch your cards. That's what most people I've met have told me. I was recently in San Diego at the Firm Growth Forum, and most accounting firms I met there, the reason they kept coming to our booth is because they saw that you don't need to switch cards. We had it right on our banner that we work on cards your clients have. You don't need to switch your cards. And like I said, you need to utilize the true credit. What's the point if you have a 10-day cycle? I mean, right. Would you really want a credit card with 10-day cycles? And then, you have your existing bank relationships, which you don't want to lose. That is really important when it comes to small businesses and mid-market businesses, because they have probably built it over the years. You switch cards, all of that is gone. And obviously keep the rewards is just like, as you said, Dan, people really care about the reward points. A lot of people do. And they have collected those air miles from the rewards over years.
Once you've been in that American Express lounge at the airport, it's not going to be easily removed from their travel experience.
Yeah, and then you want that real-time visibility into the spend data, because at the end of the month, if you're getting a statement at the end of the month, you have probably forgotten about a lot of the expenses. And then you are again manually checking. Even though you're getting the bank feed, you're still doing a lot of manual activity. But if it was real time and you had direct bank feeds, you don't have to do anything. You just have to verify the expense in real time.
Right.
Yeah. And automated credit card reconciliation. You have your automated expense coding, get the reconciliation along with the card transactions, and then push it in the accounting software. It should be as simple as that. There should not be an option where, in an ideal scenario, all software should work like that. Your expense data gets reflected into the accounting software in real time, so that you don't have to later go to the accounting software and then keep editing your expense and your categories and your chart of accounts. Then it's not really automated.
Exactly.
If that's happening. Which is why you need, my next point, two-way accounting integrations. You need self-serve bi-directional integrations. And my focus there is on self-serve, because if you can't set up your own integration easily with your accounting software, that basically means you need a managed service that will only increase the price of the software. And if you're getting into an automation software, you actually want it to be self-serve as much as possible. Because one thing that we have noticed is that the lower the self-serve capability, the lower is the adoption. People don't want to adopt a software which they can't understand easily, because it's just too much time then. And then you need training, and then you need guides and tutorials and certifications. And that should not be the case. You should not need a certification to learn a simple expense management software. So it should be self-serve, bi-directional. You should have the ability to automatically map everything, including your chart of accounts, employees, projects, even custom fields. Because a lot of time you might create custom fields in QuickBooks, and if they don't reflect back in your expense management software, the integration is not worth it. And then, coming to the finance and ability to export the expenses. You want to have a customizable format where you can export your reimbursable and credit card expenses right into your accounting software from the expense management side. So yeah, and then coming to the finance side of things, you want automated control and compliance, because if you can't do a real-time policy check, you're going to spend a ton of time at the end of the month just figuring out which policies have been violated. But if you had a real-time check, you would be able to do that. And then you obviously need the support and implementation, because even with the best of software, you will run into some bug, or you might be facing difficulty with a certain piece of the software. So you need a good support team, quick implementation. And the third one, which is near zero learning curve for employees. Your employees should not have to learn a new app. They should be able to do this without almost zero learning curve. And that is what will help you increase your adoption rates.
And that's one of the things that I think that stands apart from Fyle than other ones that are out there, is that it's nice when an app does all these things, but there's a learning curve, right? It's like, okay, well, all right, everybody, today we're using these cards, and we're using this app to be able to submit your receipts. When I was having that initial conversation in the coffee line with Vikram, like it was just kind of like, really, you could just do this in text? This is amazing. Because I can just envision, the guys, going to Home Depot or whatever, buying some job material with their card, and I could just see this playing out. Like, okay, everybody knows how to take a low quality picture of their dessert, right, and text it to somebody. I mean, I don't think there's anybody that does not know how to do that. Sending a picture via text. I mean, this is, this is pretty. That was just like, why didn't somebody think about that sooner? Was just an amazing experience for me. So let's talk about Fyle. Right? Now there's starting to be some questions about what is Fyle. How does it work? What does it do?
Sure. So, I mean, Fyle, since 30% of you said that you use an expense management app. So yes, Fyle is an expense management software. The difference is that we work on any card that you have, and we work within everyday apps. So like Dan said, you don't need to learn a new app to submit your expenses. We work within everyday applications like text messaging, Gmail, Outlook, Slack, Teams, email forwarding. We work out of those tools, and you can submit and approve on the go. So we don't want people to learn a new software just because, you want to make life simpler. What I want is what we actually, in fact, one thing that we have been quickly measuring is how many people don't use the Fyle app out of our customers, because that's a true story. That's a true indicator of that people are using text, Gmail, Outlook to submit their expenses. And that means they are doing it on a more regular basis. In fact, for a lack of a better word, we don't want your employees to have discipline. We want them to do it on the go wherever they want it to. And that's one major differentiator that we are trying to build. And we are the only ones with the real-time integration with both Visa and MasterCard, which means most of the cards that you have, and with Amex coming soon, we will cover almost all use cases where you swipe a card and you would get an instant notification to submit a receipt. And that's on the reimbursement flow that, you have automatic policy checks. You can check for duplicates, frauds. You can directly reimburse your employee accounts using ACH for the reimbursable expenses. And we have the two-way sync with QuickBooks. And on the card reconciliation flow, because you get an instant notification, everything gets coded and matched in real time. You will not have to wait till end of the week or end of the month to do that. It's all real time. It reflects at both your card statement and your Fyle dashboard in real time. Which means from an accountant side, the moment your employee or your user filed an expense, swiped the card, and they submitted the receipt via text, you see it in the Fyle dashboard and it gets pushed into QuickBooks immediately.
Yeah,
it's a complete two-way sync.
Just to kind of point out a question that came up, because you did kind of slide in there, Amex coming soon, but it doesn't mean that it doesn't work with Amex. It just means, as we're talking about the real-time access to that notification is that's coming soon, and we'll kind of
yes, we still have Amex feeds. Yeah, we still have bank feeds from Amex, but we don't have the text option yet.
Right. So let's kind of go into that. Actually, you have another slide here.
I just wanted to take
two-way integration.
The two-way integration, because for this audience, I wanted to just reiterate how powerful our two-way integration with QuickBooks is. It is no code. You will not have to do any coding or any manual effort. It's a self-serve setup in 10 minutes. Within 10 minutes, you can automatically set up the whole thing with just your simple QuickBooks login. And Fyle automatically exports your reimbursable expenses as checks, expenses, journal entries, or bills. You get to decide that when you are setting up the integration. And your credit card expenses as bills, credit card purchases, or debit card expenses, depending on which cards you're using. And all of this gets automatically exported. So when you're setting up the system, you won't have to do much. You just have to log in with your QuickBooks, and you'll have to just map the right fields once, and it's done. And then if you can move to the next slide quickly.
Yep.
Yeah, like I said, automated sync of all dimensions. all your chart of accounts, categories. Fyle imports expense accounts by default, but you can also import other accounts. You get vendors as merchants, you get the projects, classes, departments, you get a real-time coding of all expense data against the chart of accounts, and Fyle auto-syncs the payment statuses for reimbursements if you pay via your own system. So what I'm really trying to say is you don't really need to do anything manually.
Right. So that
Like
scenario,
that's what true automation looks like.
That's that scenario that Michelle was talking about with, you set up your parent account and then all of the card holders as part underneath that, and then the madness that ensues because the bank balance does not match the individual card holders because you're making the payment out of the parent account or maybe a sub account that is just for payments. They'll never match, right? Because that's part of the maddening part of connecting the bank, these multiple card holders to the bank feeds. That doesn't exist at all, right? Because you're just sending all the transactions to one account, and then when it comes time to reconcile, easy peasy, right?
Yep, they're already reconciled, like matched in real time. So all you are doing is just maybe doing a quick verification. Yeah, let's quickly move on to.
All right.
Yeah.
All right. So I'll stop sharing.
Yep.
I realized I was supposed to toss this over to you thousands of slides ago, but let me stop sharing so that you can.
That's all right.
You can show your screen. Sorry about that.
That's all right. So I'll quickly jump into, since I've been talking about real time. I mean, I don't have a credit card machine here to show you a swipe, but we did record this to show you what happens when you swipe a credit card and you have Fyle. You get a real-time notification on your phone. You just click the receipt, submit it.
And that's a poor photo because you've got you've got some you've got the angle,
boom.
You've got
and we have the time to collect receipts have reduced by 48%, and look at the dashboard in Fyle, the same expense shows up instantly. So there's one way when you are using your card. When you're using your card, everything happens instantly. The second option you have is, let's say you have a paper receipt and you want to file it for an expense. Let me quickly minimize this. So this is my phone that you see, and there's a Fyle app. All I need to do, as you can see, this was in my pocket, the receipt.
Yep.
And like you said, Dan, you don't want your hands and things to show up. We have a crop option. You can just crop everything out so that you don't, if let's say you're taking it on your car dashboard or anywhere where you're sitting, you could just crop out everything. And when you click finish, there you go.
I mean, that was like instantaneously, whereas normally it's like with other solution providers, it's give us 5 minutes to process this receipt.
And you get the category, you've got the tax group, the merchant, everything is self-filled. And in the expense report side, if you notice this, it says automatic submission. So if you don't add it to a report, Fyle has the option where you can automate your report submissions for your employees. That, hey, if you don't submit an expense report by the first of the month, all your expenses will just get submitted on its own.
The question from the chat: where is Fyle getting the data from? Is it the merchant or the credit card or the actual receipt in this case?
So we have a partnership with both Visa and MasterCard, so it comes directly from them. The card data, the issuing network, it comes directly from the issuing network.
So Vikram from Fyle again. I just want to step in on this front, if I may. The data about the transactions come from the card network. The data around coding is extracted by our AI engine from the receipt. And we do a three-way match between the transaction from the card network to the content of the receipt and match it with the chart of accounts from QuickBooks, which is also linked in real time at all times, right? So, so we do a three-way match of that, and that's how the automated coding works.
And those things. Thank you, Vikram, for the clarification there. Is that something that you can do inside of Fyle to help it learn the process, or be more explicit in the coding?
Yes. So over the years, our machine learning system has picked up the various combinations of vendors and merchants that are out there already, and based on the type of expenses as well. But there are rules that we can apply to train the system as we go along. So every time you make a change, or every time you make a specific coding change, the system learns it over a period of time. And from the next time, you're able to, the system takes over.
Got it. Okay, so you're going to show us, these are some of the things that are phenomenal about Fyle. Again,
yeah.
You know, so the out of the box thinking that you guys have with regards to don't use our app, right? Use technology that you're already using, flows into your other integrations that you have with things that businesses are already using. So here you are in Gmail.
Yeah, so what I'm about to show is like this is the same thing we have for Outlook as well. So this is a Gmail plugin, and let's say you made an expense and you got a digital receipt. With the Gmail plugin, all you need to do is click on Add Expense. Same thing as like with the Fyle app. It automatically scans everything. There you go. So you get the merchant.
All this is a plugin inside of Gmail, to be able to do that, rather than you know, go into someplace else to do this categorization, or send it, you know, forward it to a platform and then manage it there. This is all just right directly within the technology and applications that they're already using.
Yeah, and when you click on Add Expense, I've violated a food policy limit of $25 per day. So I can type a reason. So let's say it was a client meeting, and I click on continue. So now when I go to the Fyle side of things, this is what it looks like. You have the receipt. You have the date of spend, permanent mode. You even have the comment that I put there, client meeting. So it comes with a complete audit trail. So if someone had to look at it from the finance team side, it has been flagged. The expense was created.
And how long does this take to post into QuickBooks?
Yeah, about that. Give me a second. I didn't want to switch out from this view right now.
So who lives? I guess the question I have is who lives in the app if you're not needing to use the app a lot of times.
Yeah, so this is the expense. This is the spender dashboard. Is basically for the users and the employees if they still want to see what the reports look like, or if someone is meticulous about managing all the expenses and submitting the report on their own rather than letting Fyle automate it or letting the finance team automate it. So for them, it will look like something like this, where they can see all their spends. You could either select all of them and add, submit it for a report.
Nilesh, Vikram here again, sorry.
Yeah.
So I think to answer your question, Dan, who lives in the app? Imagine this workflow, right? An employee walks into a cafe, swipes a card, purchases coffee, gets a text message in real time, and takes a photograph of the receipt, responds to that message. And as far as the employee is concerned, they're done. That's all they need to do. It then goes to the verifier, which can be the bookkeeper or the accountant, who then logs into the application. Of course, we have a partner dashboard where you can manage multiple of your clients all at once. The verifier can then come into the application and check for whether the coding is all right, whether the chart of accounts is chosen properly or not, whether the employee is getting the requisite, has made the requisite, has put in the requisite comments or not, and so on and so forth. And then once they verify it, it then flows into QBO, right? So that's the workflow end to end. If that answers your question,
Got it. So it's whoever the verifier is in the situation, in the business chain of command, so to speak. But now my question to Nilesh is, how long does this take? It goes into the dashboard. When does it show up into QuickBooks? Because there may be, that may be somebody else in the whole chain of command in this case, for lack of a better word. When does it show up into QuickBooks, and does the attachment, the receipt, go along for the ride? Like where, because I know some applications were like, we want to be the source of truth and your document management as well. What does that look like?
Yeah, so it flows into QuickBooks, the receipt, plus all the information that you're gathering into Fyle. It's a two-way sync, so everything flows into QuickBooks. Like Vikram said, once it gets approved from here, so it's right now the one which I filed was an incomplete expense because it's just been filed as an expense. It's not been submitted for a report. But with the card statement, it will still get matched. So the card statement is still flowing in real time. So
yeah, so it really depends on the configuration, Dan.
Yeah.
We have options of scheduling the push, or it can be done once the workflow is complete, right? So both the options exist. It's all dependent on how you want to configure it and how we want to configure it for specific clients.
Got it. And then the question that came up in the Q&A. So what do you do with the bank feed at that point inside of QuickBooks? Do you even need to connect the credit card inside of QuickBooks, or is it really just not necessary? And what does that look like after that? So once it's in QuickBooks,
right,
you're going to go into one account. You don't have this parent-child shenanigans. It's just one account. What is it? How does that? What's next for inside of QuickBooks?
Yeah. Right. So you don't actually need to have the feed coming into QuickBooks at all, because all the transactions, as long as the transactions are authorized by the bank, and which happens to be all the time, we get the transaction because we write in the authorization workflow for any of the cards through the networks directly, right? So you can be rest assured this is the single source of truth, even better than the QuickBooks feed that you would typically get from the banks, right? And this is not broken. And to that extent, you get a fully matched, ready to reconcile data from Fyle into QBO with the images of the receipt as well. So there's no real reason for you to still have those feeds in. However, we do have customers who enable that into a different bank account, and there is no duplication. We've taken care of the fact that it does not create duplicate entries in QuickBooks, right? So that's been taken care of.
Got it. All right. Anything else that you wanted to demonstrate for us, Nilesh?
Just quickly wanted to show you the admin side of things, like what it would look if you were an admin or a approver.
Got it. I'm going to launch
get a task list.
The last poll while you're doing that about maybe learning more about Fyle, because I know there's some questions about, well, okay, this is great, but how much does it cost, right? That would be more of like setting up a demonstration with you directly, so we can do that by opting in here.
Sure. So if you're on the accountant side, if you're on the finance team side, you get to see a task list. which says how many unverified reports, how many submitted reports, what all do you need to do when you are, starting your day with Fyle. Let's say you're doing it at the end of the month or at the end of the week and you want to close your books. You get everything in one single site. You can even send reminders if your employees have pending tasks. I mean, in this case, it seems there are no pending tasks for Teresa Brown here, but if there were pending tasks, you could send reminders or even schedule reminders. So let's say you want to schedule a reminder on the 25th of every month to send it to everyone that, hey, file your expense reports because closing time is coming. And then the next important part I want to show was the spend overview, which is basically what we talked about when we said you could get real-time data on how much spend is happening month on month or quarterly or yearly or weekly. And you could see it by the card, merchants, categories, employees, departments, projects. This would really help you understand where your money is being spent most and what's the change like from the previous period, because that would help you manage spend much better for your clients and for your company itself. And you could further go into your analytics section and you could see the spend by categories, departments, projects, business units, cost centers, who's violated a policy, travel planning, for hotels, for flights. So you know who's spending within 7 days, above 7 days, for hotels, flights, and then which merchants are the most used. For example, Marriott, $80,000 have been spent. You probably want to go to Marriott and negotiate a better deal for yourself.
Right.
And then
All right,
just
so we
one,
are a little bit under. What else?
just one quick thing that I wanted to show, because without that, I think this would not be complete, is the integration side. So, because you asked how would it look in QuickBooks.
Mm-hmm.
So once you go to your QuickBooks setup inside Fyle, you could go to your export log and you click on this. I'll just have to probably click on this. There's a problem with the demo account. Yeah, this is how it looks like inside QuickBooks.
Immediately has, or based on your settings, it'll push this transaction directly into the credit card account with lots of detail and the project, and so they can still run reports.
Category description. Yeah.
If you're running the reports out of QuickBooks, those are not going to be interrupted by this connection. There's your receipt. You can see the receipt. Awesome.
And the memo, it's a reimbursable expense by a particular user. So yeah.
So
like I said,
we're a little bit over our hour, but we just wanted to kind of just come in for a landing here. So what this really does is it allows real-time access to expenses using the cards that people are already using with technology that they're already familiar with using. So they don't have to change their cards, they don't have to change their technology workflows for employees to submit expenses, or just entering in expense transactions that with company credit cards. Does that kind of summarize, Nilesh, what Fyle does?
Yes.
I don't want to speak for you, but I think
no, it does. It does summarize it. I mean, that's what we do. We are trying to simplify it for everyone, be it for the end user, be it for the accountants. And anyone who wants to, has any more questions, reach out to Dan, reach out to me, reach out to Vikram, and we'll be happy to help, happy to show you around the platform itself. I mean, there's a lot more to it. I just wanted to show the key parts. So yeah, and it's been Great speaking with everyone.
All right. On the QB Power Hour website, we're going to have a landing page for Fyle. There is a place to submit, referrals if you just want to, send something over the wall or directly to Fyle. If you if you want a client to to see a demonstration or whatnot, you can certainly do that right there on the QB Power Hour website. Michelle, any closing thoughts?
I just think it's amazing. I hope you guys will check it out. I put the link in there. There is a great accountants portal as well. So if you have multiple clients using it, so I put the link to that in there. But check it out. It's pretty cool.
All right. Well, thanks for joining us, Nilesh from Fyle, and Vikram, the voice from above.
Yes, thank you.
And we'll see you next time on the
Scaling New Heights. Yeah, I look forward to seeing both of them in real life at Scaling New Heights.
All right. Have a great day. We'll see you next time on the
Michelle.
QB Power Hour.
Thank you so much.